Hello everyone, welcome back. So today we are here to continue the second part of the chapter The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde. In the first part we studied about a selfish giant who had a big garden and he scolded the kids to not to enter in his garden. Then nature punished him in his own way and there was winter for a long time in his garden. Though he was waiting for the spring as he wanted to get the sweet smell of blooming flowers and he wanted to listen beautiful songs of the birds, but he was unable to get this happiness as the nature was too sad in the absence of the kids in the garden. So one day the giant heard the sweet music and he looked outside and felt amazing by watching the beautiful sight of his garden. So let's see what was the surprise for the giant. He saw a most wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept in. Crept in means entered. And they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree that he could see, there was a little child, and the trees were so glad to have the children back again that they had covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's heads. The birds were flying about and the twittering with delight, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. It was a lovely scene. Only in the corner it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree and he was wandering all round it, crying bitterly. The poor tree was still covered with frost and snow, and the north wind was blowing and roaring above it. Climb up, little boy, said the tree, and it bent its branches down as low as it could. But the boy was too tiny. So the giant was amazed. He saw that the kids made a hole in the wall and entered in the garden. They all were sitting on the branches of the trees. So, with the arrival of the kids, the spring came and the birds started singing. So, you can see the giant is watching the children playing in the garden, and the birds are also feeling amused, and the trees are also happy. So the trees were welcoming the kids by lowering their twigs, the flowers were blooming, and the birds were expressing their happiness through their sweet songs. It was a wonderful sight, but in the distant corner of his garden there was a little boy who was trying to climb and sit upon the branch of the tree, but he was too small to reach there. He was roaming all around the tree, so there was the still winter in that corner. Though the tree lowered its twigs to help the little child to climb up, but he was too short to catch this twig, and the giant's heart melted as he looked out. How selfish I have been, he said. Now I know why the spring would not come here. I will put that poor little boy on the top of the tree and then I will knock down the wall. Knock down means break down. And my garden shall be the children's playground forever and ever. He was really very sorry for what he had done. So the giant was looking all this and then he realized his fault. Now he understood the cause of long winter and absence of spring in his garden. He decided to help that child to climb the tree and to break the wall as it was the root of all the problems. He decided to allow the kids in his garden and he was really feeling guilty for being so selfish in his life. So he crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly and went out into the garden. But when the children saw him, they were so frightened that they all ran away, and the garden became winter again. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were so full of tears that he did not see the giant coming. And the giant stole up behind him and took him gently in his hands. Stole up means coming from backside, and put him into the tree. And the tree broke at once into blossom. The birds came and sang on it, and the little boy stretched out his two arms and flung them round the giant's neck and kissed him. You can see in the picture also the child is showing his love towards the selfish giant. So, thinking all this, the selfish giant came down and opened the main door of his castle. The kids saw him and ran away from there, and winter again came in the garden in the absence of the children. Then the little boy was still standing there, as his eyes were filled with tears, so he could not notice the giant was coming towards him. The giant came quietly from his backside and lifted him in his hands. He helped him to climb upon the tree. As the child sat on the tree branch, it started blooming, and birds also came there to sit on the branches and to sit in their melodious voice. The little boy showed his gratitude to the giant and hugged him tightly. He also kissed the giant on his cheeks to show his love towards him. Then, and the other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, came running back, and with them came the spring. "It is your garden now, little children," said the giant, and he took a great axe and knocked down the wall. And when the people were going to market at 12 o'clock, they found the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. So, when the other children noticed that the giant was not cruel anymore, they also came running in the garden and brought spring with them. The giant announced that it was their garden now and they could play there as much as they wanted. He also broke the wall with a big axe. From that day, other people also noticed while going to market that at 12 in the afternoon children played happily with the giant in the garden, which was the most beautiful garden in the city. All day long they played, and in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. So the children played the whole day and went back at home in the evening by saying goodbye to the giant. "But where is your little companion?" he said. "The boy I put into the tree. The giant loved him the best because he had kissed him." "We don't know," answered the children. "He has gone away." "You must tell him to be sure and come tomorrow," said the giant. But the children said they didn't know where he lived and had never seen him before. Now the giant felt very sad. Though all the children were coming there to play in his garden, but the giant was missing the little kid whom he helped to climb upon the tree. He loved him because he showed his love towards the giant by kissing him. So he asked one day to the children about the little companion, but the children did not know anything about him. The giant insisted those children to bring him with them the next day, but they did not know where he lived. Then the giant became disappointed and waited eagerly for his little friend. Every afternoon, when school was over, the children came and played with the giant. But the little boy whom the giant loved was never seen again. The giant was kind to all the children, yet he longed for his little friend. Longed means desire, and often spoke to him. "How I would like to see him," he used to say. Now it was a routine that every afternoon children came into his garden to play and enjoy with him after their school hours, but the giant never saw that little kid with them. Though he loved all other children too, but he was missing his little friend and hoping to meet him in future. Years went by, and the giant grew very old and feeble, and he could not play about anymore. You can also see in the picture he is sitting on the armchair and just watching the children playing in his garden. So he sat in a huge armchair and watched the children at their games and admired his garden. I have many beautiful flowers, he said, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all. So now days turned to years, and Giant became old and weak. Feeble means weak. He was not able to play with the children anymore. So now he used to sit on his easy chair and enjoyed watching children to play in his garden. He was very happy to see those happy children playing and enjoying in his garden. He thought that there were many beautiful flowers in his garden, but the happy children were the most beautiful flowers for him because his garden was looking beautiful only in their presence. One winter morning, he looked out of his window as he was dressing. He did not hate the winter now, for he knew that it was merely the spring asleep and that the flowers were resting. Now winter came, and one morning he watched from his window when he was wearing his dress. Now he was not afraid of winter anymore because he knew that it was only the season and that spring will also come after some time and flowers will also bloom again when spring will come. Suddenly he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked and looked. It certainly was a marvelous sight. Marvelous means amazing. In the farthest corner of the garden was a tree quite covered with lovely white blossoms. Its branches were golden and silver fruit hung down from them, and underneath it stood the little boy he had loved. Suddenly, the giant got attracted by a wonderful sight. He rubbed his eyes again and again because the sight was unbelievable for him. In the distant corner of his garden, the tree was blooming with beautiful white flowers and silver fruits were there on its beautiful golden branches. And he was joyful because same little boy was standing under the tree, whom he was waiting for years. Downstairs ran the giant in great joy, and out into the garden he hastened across the grass, and came near to the child. And when he came quite close, his face grew red with anger, and he said, "Who hath dared to wound thee?" For on the palms of the child's and hands were the prints of 2 nails, and the prints of 2 nails were on the little feet. "Who hath dared to wound thee?" cried the giant. "Tell me, that I may take my big sword and slay him." Slay him means kill him. Suddenly, when he ran down in great happiness and went to that place where the child was present, but as he saw him, his happiness gone, and he became angry after seeing some wounds on the little palms and feet of the child. He shouted in anger, "Who dared to hurt you in this way? He will kill that person with his big sword, and he will punish him severely for hurting that little child." But the little child said, "Nay," answered the child, "but these are the wounds of love." But the child told him not to do anything because he should be quiet because nobody could hurt him. These were the wounds of love only, so don't be angry. "Who art thou?" said the giant, and the strange awe fell on him, and he knelt before the little child. "Who art thou means who are you?" So now the giant realized that the child was not an ordinary child, he was an angel or God himself, because the wounds of palm and feet reminded him of Lord Christ. So he felt amazed and blessed, and he also bent down on his knees before the kid. And the child smiled on the giant and said to him, "You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise." Paradise means heaven. And when the children ran in the afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered with white blossoms. So also you can see in the picture that the giant is lying under the tree and white flowers are there upon his body. So, then the child smiled gently and told the giant that once he allowed him to play in his garden, so now he was there to take him to his own garden that is called heaven. So he carried the giant with him. Now, in the afternoon, when children came to play in the garden, they were surprised and sad too, because the giant was dead and his body was lying under the tree covered with those beautiful white flowers. So, children, in this way, the story comes to an end with the message that our kindness and gentleness of heart are always rewarded by God or nature, as the God rewarded the giant for his kindness to children and gave him the place in his heaven. So, we should never be selfish or greedy, rather, behave with kindness to all. So, this is all for today. In the next class, we'll meet with a new topic. Thank you all. Have a nice day.